70%. No, your probability of dying on Mars is much higher than Earth. It's going to be hard. There's a good chance of death.
Elon Musk's inspiration for life on Mars is effortlessly the most aspiring plan set out by any modern leader. Within the next 50 years, 1 million people living and working willingly on another planet, a second home for the human race. It's an insane idea to ponder about. And yes, of course Musk isn't the only first person to have this idea, but he is the only person so far with that much wealth and the resources and the tenacity to actually get this thing done. We're in early stages right now, but the seeds for life on Mars have already been sown. But what exactly are we going to do when we arrive on Mars, and what will be living on Mars really appear? Like, well, we've never done this before, so no one can really say it with certainty. But there are also really cool ideas out there, and it's all quite fun to ponder about. So the basic need for getting people and stuff to Mars is really simple, and I say that only because Elon and SpaceX have already got that majorly figured out. We're using the SpaceX Starship as our way of transportation between Earth and Mars. That's the same rocket that just finished a successful takeoff and landing test. The SN-15 prototype that we saw nail the landing is pretty close to what the final Starship product will really be. It's just a really huge stainless steel rocket ship that can take off from a planet, fly through space, and come back down again completely intact. And it can do that over and over again, with only a little pause to refuel in between flights. No rocket like this has ever been victoriously accomplished before. This is a real game changer. The Starship will serve as a ferry between Earth and Mars. Some will transport people, but even more flights will carry supplies. The Starship can transport 100 metric tons of cargo per flight. Just for comparison, that's about 50 Tesla Model 3 cars for comparison. Once every 2 years, when Earth and Mars arrive at their nearest point in space, a navy of starships will make the 7-month journey between the two planets. Clearly, no one actually thinks that Mars is going to be a nice, cozy place to live on. But just how harsh is it going to be? Well, the usual temperature is around negative 60 degrees Celsius, which is crazy cold even by Canadian standards. Although in the intensity of summer at the equator of the planet, Mars can rise to a maximum temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius, which is pleasant, I'd say. But it doesn't actually signify that you'll be kicking back in a lounge chair with a nice beverage every day. The atmosphere on Mars is quite non-existent, and there is mainly carbon dioxide. The volume of atmospheric gas on Mars is less than 1% of what we have on Earth, so there's not much to work with, and additionally, there is nothing present to breathe. There is also absolutely nothing there to shield the surface of Mars from cosmic radiation. Even as much as the Sun endures our life on Earth, that's only because our atmosphere is capable of blocking out all of the bad radiation that would just murder us. The gravity is also lighter on Mars. Mars is really smaller than the Earth, so the gravity is only about 1/3 as strong there. But that's pretty much a good thing for us, because after 7 months of weightless spaceflight, the human body is going to be really enfeebled, so regaining strength on Mars will be easier than on Earth. Trying to come back home after a long stay though, that is going to be very demanding to deal with. Then there are those epic dust storms that can engulf the whole planet. Dust is going to be a huge issue in some cases on Mars. That's what Matt Damon faced. When he was on Mars, he got caught in a dust storm and all of his things blew over and he got helpless. Fortunately, that is just a movie and didn't actually occur. So in actual life, the wind on Mars wouldn't be a big deal like we mentioned before. The atmosphere is so much thinner over there than it is on Earth. So even in an insane 100-kilometer high dust storm on Mars, the wind is only blowing like 60 kilometers an hour. It's the dust that's going to be an issue. It literally gets everywhere. All the equipment is going to have to be utterly sealed against dust getting inside and destroying everything. Solar panels are also going to be a pain in the butt to keep away from dirt. Generally, dust storms are going to be very harmful. They'll be pretty tame in comparison, so Mars is certainly not going to be a safe place, and like Elon has said, people will most likely die. Probably some accidents will be happening to people. The chances of making a mistake with everything on Mars will be so slim that any little error or equipment failure can cost a person their life. Musk told an interviewer on CNN that he would only ever go to Mars personally if he knew that SpaceX would carry this work after his death.
You're 47. What is the likelihood that you personally will go to Mars?
70%.
So even as Musk isn't super optimistic about his chances of survival, but is there anything we can achieve to make Mars a more congenial place for human beings to reside? Hopefully there are some theories about terraforming Mars. Musk has an idea in mind that is kind of crazy. Elon tweeted in August 2019 in support of his idea of terraforming Mars. "We should just nuke it. I mean, we're aware that that's an extreme solution, but there is some science behind it. Even though some options are split, the idea is that if you set off a bunch of nuclear bombs over the top of the polar regions of Mars, that heat generated could melt the frozen water and release huge amounts of stored carbon dioxide and water vapor into the Martian atmosphere. In theory, all of this recently released gas would raise the density of the atmosphere on Mars and plausibly start a greenhouse effect that would start to warm the planet. I mean, that does make sense on a basic scale. There was also a study issued in 2018 in the Journal of Nature Astronomy that deduced that there just isn't enough carbon dioxide available in Mars, at least not that we're aware of, to actually generate any significant warming of the planet. But some scientists said the whole could actually backfire and begin a nuclear winter event. A company called AI Space Factory has mustered an automated process that would 3D print an egg-shaped building utilizing materials yielded on Mars. The concept is to utilize basalt in combination with bioplastic to generate a durable building material. The basalt fiber would be extracted from Martian rock, and the polylactic acid binding material that would make both practicable and solid would be extracted from plants that could be grown in greenhouses on Mars. The outcome would be an amazingly strong, stable, and insulated shell that would be made by a 3D printing robot. Martian conditions necessitate a structure optimized to manage internal atmospheric pressure and thermal stresses, and AI Space Factory are contemplating that an egg shape would be perfect to meet those needs. Everything would be constructed vertically, so there would be no hallways, just main levels. But do remember that wind and gravity are significantly less of a problem on Mars, so there's no issue at all with building upward. This is absolutely a more practical idea. If a colony is encountered with a dust storm, then that energy from the sun is lessened even more. Even on days with no storm, dust will still form on top of the panels frequently and lessen their effectiveness. So we would need to deal with that, either an automated system that would consume even more of that precious electric, or by having people to do it. Clearing dust off solar panels by themselves could become the #1 job on Mars. People are eyeing these opportunities for a great crossing, where massive groups of people could all migrate at one time. The big one is probably going to take place in the year 2051. By that time, SpaceX should have constructed thousands of Starship vehicles. Maybe they've even manufactured something way better by that point. Who knows? There should be an actual city on Mars ready for us to live in 30 years from now.